So Douglas Murray and Dave Smith have responded to the criticism of their Joe Rogan podcast appearance. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the British intellectual Douglas Murray and the American comedian podcaster Dave Smith responding to the criticism of their Joe Rogan podcast appearance. Now, what I heard from both of these guys in their responses kind of confirms what I said in my initial video. Now, if you don't remember, if you need a refresher, let me back up a little bit to explain what's going on. Now, Douglas Murray, like I said, British intellectual, he is more pro-Israel. Now, Dave Smith, the so-called comedian, podcast guy, he's more sympathetic to the Palestinian people, although he is Jewish. Now, this was supposed to be a debate between the two sides. Okay, whose opinion, whose facts make more sense, Douglas Murray or Dave Smith? What it became, in my humble opinion, was a match between who was more credible, who should be able to speak on the subject matter and who shouldn't. And that argument came from Douglas Murray. Dave Smith, in my humble opinion, was there prepared to have a debate. Here's my ideas. Let's hear your ideas, and let's let the people decide who's right, who's wrong. That's what it should have been. But Douglas Murray, in my humble opinion, did not want it to be that way. Now, before I go any further, let's get to some clips. First, I'm going to go back and give you some context. Then we're going to get to the reaction from both of these men to the reaction of them being on the podcast. And of course, everything will be in the description box. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? I've never been to. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you
Well,
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No.
Now, this kind of thing went on for like 40 minutes in the beginning. Oh, you've never been to the crossing points, and you're not an expert. You're a comedian. That was the whole vibe. And it's like, bro, come on. Like, are we here for a debate or not?
okay.
I find that
lots
very...
of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going to
what
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an expert...
Well, you have to go and touch the ground?
No, I think you have to see... I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something.
It's so weird because Dave Smith had a good point when he said, look, okay, have you been in Nazi Germany? Have you been there? So if you've not been in Nazi Germany, then how can you speak on it? Have you been to Egypt? You get whole Egyptologists that have never been to ancient Egypt. Egypt today is not ancient Egypt, so don't say that part. But you understand what I mean? Just because you've not physically been to a place does not mean that you can't have an opinion on it, okay? Let's keep on going. Now, here is the response from Dave Smith, okay? Here's what Dave Smith has to say about the debate and how it went.
I left there with the feeling, I would say even a half hour in to the show, I think the reaction that we're getting, you know, I've had a lot of debates where the reaction is overwhelmingly that I won the debate. In this particular case, it's just that he lost it.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I am a person who does not know Dave Smith at all or Douglas Murray. This is my very first time seeing either one of them. And first impressions mean a lot. My first impression is that Dave Smith, regardless of what you want to say about his credibility, oh, he's a comedian, ABO, he doesn't know anything. Regardless, he came to the debate in good faith, but Douglas Murray did not. And once we get to his reaction, it's going to confirm my first impression. Let's continue here, though.
Like, it wasn't even that I beat him in the debate. He started out with a 40-minute struggle session for Joe Rogan that just contained probably the longest stretched logical fallacy I've ever seen anyone open a debate with. Just a naked appeal to authority, completely unclear with what he was saying. He came in. So in this struggle session with Joe Rogan, I couldn't make this up. This is barely before I presented any thought or argument or opinion. I think it was before that. He comes in with this long that is an appeal to authority, an appeal to expertise. You're having these non-experts talk about issues that experts should talk about. And I'm not saying they should be censored, and I'm not saying they shouldn't talk about it, but they're talking about it and they're acting like they're experts. How are they acting like they're experts? Because they're talking about it. And when they're talking about it, it was just the most ridiculous argument, the most pompous, elitist, but essentially telling the host of the show and the entire audience, your opinion doesn't matter. Like, it was just a strategy to me that was like, you want to make everyone think you're a pompous. It was wild. In there, sandwiched in this appeal to expertise, he trashes Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll, whose names he doesn't even know, and admits that he's never consumed any of their material before.
Let's pause for a second. Yeah, and that was crazy because he was having to ask, who was the other fellow? Who was the other chap? I don't know. It's like, you don't even know these guys' names, but you wouldn't be on the podcast talking crazy about them when they're not there to defend themselves. It was really ridiculous. It was really crazy.
Yet he's trashing them and then claiming that you can only talk about these issues if you have expertise. Then when he's asked, does he have expertise? He goes, well, in some things. Do you talk about things you don't have expertise in? Yeah, all the time I talk about things I don't have expertise in. Okay, well, why can you do that? Oh, you're not even understanding my point. It was just like the most wild thing. And it just became clear as the show went on that Douglas Murray came to do anything but debate me. Like, that was the theme of the entire show.
Now, there's more to this. I'll leave it in the box. But that was the whole thing. And here's my opinion. If you agree to show up for a debate, you should debate. It shouldn't be all this extra stuff talking about, oh, you can't talk about that. You're not an expert. And your friend, who I don't even know his name, he's bad too. His podcast sucks, although I've not watched it. It's like, are you here to just attack people, or are you here to debate the issue? Let's focus on what we came here to do. All right, now, again, this is Dave Smith. Let's go to Douglas Murray and hear his response to the criticism of the debate between him and Dave Smith.
I mean, Joe's a friend, and I was trying to be gentle with him about what I regard as being a dangerous tilt that he and some other podcasters are encouraging. What I really maybe should have said then, can now, is that everybody recognizes expertise in the areas they know about.
What do you mean, everybody? Like, I don't understand. Let me let him finish, because he's kind of starting off wrong already right here.
And for instance, if you had gone on Joe Rogan and sought to spend 3 hours talking about MMA fighting,
wouldn't be very convincing.
That's my guess. I mean, it may surprise me, but I would think that quite early on he would work out that you didn't really know what you were talking about. And if you said, hey, I never said I'm an MMA expert, I just want to keep talking about it, then at some point they would have to call bullshit on you, and they'd get very annoyed.
That's really silly. If you go on Joe Rogan and talk about MMA and you say things that don't make sense, the audience would be able to tell, Rogan would be able to tell, we would be able to gather that. That does not mean they shouldn't talk about it. Let them talk and let the people decide. It's very simple. And you know what? How about this? If you have an quote unquote expert in MMA speaking to a guy who knows nothing, and let them talk and let people watch, people will be able to see, okay, the guy who is a so-called expert, he knows more. He won a debate. It's very simple. If you are the so-called expert on a thing, if you know more than Dave Smith, then have a good faith argument and you be able to defeat him easily. Or at least you should be able to defeat him easily. If you know more than him, if your facts are right, if your opinion makes sense, if it connects to the people, you'll succeed. You don't need to go on there and just say, you're not an expert. I want to have a discussion. That's not how you have a debate.
Well, okay, that's the same with lots of other things. I get very annoyed when I hear people who are in no way recognizably historians, in no way recognizably expert in the subjects they talk about, regurgitating false versions of history that I saw debunked already in my lifetime.
I'm going to stop here right there. But look, so because you think that Dave Smith is not an historian, you don't want to have a debate? Okay, why not just say that before you show up? Why show up to a debate when you don't really want to debate? If you want to send Joe Rogan a message, if you want to send Dave Smith a message, why do that on Joe Rogan's platform without debating? Listen, let me just come back so you can see me clearly. If Douglas Murray, you wanted to attack Joe Rogan, you wanted to attack Dave Smith, you could have done that in the context of a debate rather than trying to debunk them before a debate happened. Look, you're there for a purpose. Do that. It's just like this. Mike Tyson, right? Okay, you got the best fighter in the world during his prime in the 80s. Guys are getting knocked out one punch in the first round. It was simple. Now, another fight happens. You have an amateur. Mike can defeat the amateur quickly, or he could say, oh, I don't want to fight him because you're not it. Nah, just go ahead and beat him. You the man, right? You Iron Mike, right? Knock him out and be done with it. Douglas Murray, same thing. You the man, right? You the British intellectual with a degree in English from Magdalen College, which is kind of funny, a bachelor's degree, but anyway, you're the expert, you're the man, knock him out one punch, rather than saying why you don't want to fight when you show up to a fight to fight. Now, as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to Dave Smith. Like I said, I was not familiar with either one of these guys. Quite frankly, that subject matter is not really interesting to me. I know what I need to know about it. I don't need to hear guys talk about it. Some guys, it makes sense, listen to it. But for me personally, for ABL, it doesn't make any sense. But what I saw was one guy show up in good faith and the other guy didn't. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about the debate between Douglas Murray and Dave Smith? What's your opinion about their responses to the criticism? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. If I show up to a debate, I'm going to show up in good faith. I'm going to have the debate. And if I feel like I'm superior, I know more, I'm the better person, I will adhere to the rules and defeat my opponent within the rules. Very simple. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.